Hi, everyone. So great to see so many friendly faces tonight. We're just going to give everyone another couple of moments to get settled, and we will start our conversation in just a minute. All right, great. So let's get started. We're right at 5:31. Welcome, everyone. My name is Julia Chang. I am the Philanthropic Initiatives Officer at the New York Community Trust. We're so glad you could join us tonight for our Westchester Community Foundation Town Hall. Please take a moment and put yourself on mute if you're not already, just so we can make sure we can hear all of our speakers. And you will be able to raise your hands and unmute yourself when we get to the Q&A portion of the event. The town hall is being recorded and will be published after the event, and you're welcome to have your cameras on or off. Tonight, we're joined by the new president of the New York Community Trust, Amy Freitag, who will be talking with Westchester Community Foundation Executive Director Laura Rossi, Westchester Board Chair Sarah Jones Maturo, and donor and former Board Chair Dale Akinla. They'll discuss how the foundation works, some of the challenges currently facing Westchester, and how together with our nonprofit partners, we can work to make life better for all who call Westchester home. And thank you as well to the amazing staff and board, past and present, of the Westchester Community Foundation, Long Island Community Foundation, and the New York Community Trust, who are also joining us tonight in the audience, without whom our work would not be possible. After the initial conversation, we'll open it up to your questions, but do please feel free to use the chat section, including typing your questions there throughout. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Amy Freitag. Amy brings to the Trust more than 2 decades of experience in the nonprofit, philanthropic, and government sectors. She has led family foundations, the New York Restoration Project, and was the Deputy Commissioner for New York City Parks and Recreation. Welcome, Amy. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Julia, and greetings, Westchester. I am so thrilled to be here with you tonight and with my wonderful colleagues. Let me just start off with the basics. Why am I, from the New York Community Trust, here talking about the Westchester Community Foundation? Well, that's because we are one and the same. Both the Westchester and the community and Long Island Community Foundations are divisions of the New York Community Trust. Together, we are 8 counties strong, stretching from the lower Hudson Valley to the very east end of Long Island. Our Westchester office is located in Hartsdale, and we've been serving the Westchester community for more than 45 years. So as a community foundation, we have a 2-part mission. We take in and steward funds from donors, and we make grants to local nonprofits. Tonight, we welcome people who represent both parts of that mission, donors and grantees. We also welcome others interested in our work. You may know us as a funder, as a convener, or as a friendly place to call to get guidance on making a grant to a local foundation. Attorneys and financial advisors know us as a place to meet their clients' charitable goals. Tonight, our hope is to connect all of those dots and to foster a richer understanding of how our donors and grant making connect. And of course, I really wanted to meet everyone and to answer your questions. So let me start by saying that everything we do is thanks to the generosity of generations of donors who call Westchester and the other 7 counties we serve home. The New York Community Trust manages more than 2,000 funds, some of which donors set up generations ago, and those funds continue to make grants today. Others were set up by living, active donors who are eager to support their neighbors and neighborhood institutions right now. And if there's ever been an outpouring of community support, we certainly saw it in your community's response to COVID. Together, we raised a special $3 million fund just for Westchester COVID relief. We know that the ripple effects of the pandemic are still felt by many, which highlights the importance of our continued mission to make Westchester a healthy and vibrant place for everyone. We also house collaborative funds, which are sort of pools of funds created when foundations and other funders come together to address really big issues like workforce development, or getting an accurate count for the census, or cleaning up Long Island Sound. Thanks to generations of generous donors, we're able to make grants each year to make Westchester a better place. This past year, our outstanding grant-making team, all of whom are with us tonight, made $2.6 million worth of grants to Westchester County. In addition, our active donors, or donor advised funds, made an additional $3 million in grants, much of which stayed in the county. We are one of the largest and most permanent funders in Westchester. We've been here for generations, and we will be making grants in perpetuity. So let me just say a few words about what I mentioned just a minute ago, which was donor advised funds, or DAFs, or our active donors. These are folks who suggest grants to nonprofits really all over the country, but many right here in Westchester. We support these donors by vetting the organizations they want to fund and expediting their grants. While we're here to advise them always, these donors get to call the shots. Sometimes these active donors also make permanent legacy gifts to Westchester. This ensures that the organizations and causes they support will continue to be funded long into the future. We work with estate lawyers and financial planners to ensure that these donors' wishes are honored. The New York Community Trust has been honoring those kinds of donor commitments for more than 100 years. So now it's my tremendous pleasure to turn it over to Laura Rossi, Westchester Community Foundation's wonderful executive director. Laura, welcome. Tell us, please share some of the work you've been doing with the Westchester donors.
Thank you, Amy, and it's wonderful to be with you all this evening. I see a few familiar faces in the audience. Hello to everybody, and I look forward to the day when we can be together in person. As Amy mentioned, our community of donors are truly what sets us apart. And I want to share with you the different ways that a few of our donors work with us. From our permanent side, we have an amazing social justice portfolio that was established by the Dominican Sisters of Hope, a religious order that is nationwide and international, but has its home base in Ossining here in Westchester, and wanted to be able to support in perpetuity, long after they are gone, the causes and issues that they care about. And when I say social justice portfolio, they have a very clear sense of how to support grassroots organizing, advocacy, listening to the voices of the people closest to the problems that are affecting their lives, and supporting their work to make true change in our community. So thank you to the Dominican Sisters of Hope for establishing their empowerment fund with us. So they are still here, but they have entrusted our staff, who do a wonderful job, to go out there and find great programs and nonprofits to support. We also have wonderful donor advisors who work alongside us by making aligned grants from their donor advised funds to meet basic needs, such as housing stability, access to legal services, a range of women's issues. So these are donors who have donor advised funds and pick up the phone and call us and say, what are you seeing? Where can I recommend a grant to? What are you focusing on? Where is there a gap? How can my grant making through my donor advised fund amplify and align what the program staff here are doing? And last, we are working with a corporate donor, RXR, which is the master developer for the city of New Rochelle, which is aligning a lot of their grants during COVID-19 to do emergency relief in the city of New Rochelle. So here's a corporation that wants to give back to the community and has worked very closely with us on emergency relief and is now rolling out youth development grants, and we provide back office support in helping them think about their grant making, develop their strategy, and vet the organizations that they are supporting. So these are just some of the donors. They're joined by so many others. It would take me, as many of you know, all evening to tell you about all of them, but I'm going to stop here and turn it back over to Amy.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura, for that. That was fantastic. So now we covered part one of our mission, working with donors. Let's shift our attention now to how we meet our second important mission, which is getting money out the door to the amazing nonprofits that make life better in Westchester. Our annual competitive grant-making program is supported by those generations of generous donors that we spoke of earlier. Those funds generate an annual return that supports the multi-year strategies that our excellent grant-making teams develop. Nonprofit organizations can apply throughout the year by submitting proposals for projects that make life better in Westchester. We also put out periodically requests for proposals or RFPs for special needs that may arise, unfortunately, like COVID, but other opportunities where a group of an effort like that can really push a lot of efforts forward. All of this information can be found on our website. Our grant-making staff, who are deeply focused on issues such as education, arts, the environment, and health, review these proposals that we receive from the nonprofit applicants. The staff then propose which grants to make to our board, and the grants are made 3 times a year, approved by our board. I want to note that a nonprofit can be based somewhere else, but the work that they're proposing or applying to the trust to fund must serve the people of Westchester. So next up, it is my huge pleasure to introduce Sarah Jones-Maturo, Chair of the Westchester Community Foundation Advisory Board. She is president of commercial real estate brokerage at RM Friedland, and she is a resident of Larchmont. Sarah.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for that tremendous introduction, and thank you to all who are here today in our audience. What I enjoy most about acting as board chair is working to facilitate the connection between those who are looking for help and those who want to help. When I joined the board 4 years ago, hard to believe it's been that long, I thought of the Westchester Community Foundation mainly as a grant-making institution. But after broader exposure to its inner workings, I have learned so much about all the aspects of our Westchester community that the foundation touches. From bringing funders together around critical issues, to housing donor-advised funds, to helping people integrate charity into their estate plans. It is fascinating to be part of a process that carefully ties a fund that was left for youth and see how the program team develops a strategy and makes grants for leadership development, for example. It's an institution that truly values the charitable intentions of its donors. I think that is perhaps one of the reasons that referrals are our primary source of people opening new funds. After seeing the tremendous work that the foundation staff members do, our donors recommend us to their friends, and attorneys and financial advisors refer us to their clients. I want to sincerely thank all of those out there who have connected us with your friends, family, and clients. You are a vital part of this work and making our community so much stronger. Now I'd like to pass the microphone to Dale Akinla, my friend who preceded me as board chair. He is also a donor. He is Senior Vice President at Morgan Stanley, managing a wealth advisor practice out of Purchase, New York. Dale.
Thank you, Sarah. It is really nice to be here this evening with all of you. Thanks for coming in. To echo some of Sarah's comments, my work as board chair in terms of oversight, in terms of strategy and review of grant recommendations to nonprofits effectively meeting a variety of needs and serving Westchester really afforded me the opportunity to appreciate the edge the foundation brings to realizing the goals and objectives of its donors. There certainly is the expertise the leadership and staff bring to bear in identifying, in assessing, in monitoring nonprofits. But there's a second element, and Amy mentioned this, as did Sarah. It is the speed with which they can get money out the door to the right places at the right time. Our recent experience with emergency grants in response to the COVID pandemic is illuminating, whether it was support to nonprofits providing childcare to first responders and essential service workers. Think about that for a minute. Or it was getting technology, including laptops and enhanced internet access to other nonprofits, donors working through the foundation made a big difference. The foundation is a thoughtful grant maker addressing long-term needs. Personally meaningful to me has been grants to support nonprofits helping high school teenagers learn to resolve conflicts without resorting to violence. Grants like these were made possible by donors who trusted the foundation to make smart, effective grants over the long term. Finally, let's face it, many of the causes and problems you and I care about will be around in some shape or form long after we're gone. As such, having an institution like the foundation continue that legacy with the benefit of a donors fund long into the future is attractive, and it helps our community. And so I think of the foundation as complementing my giving. Some giving is directly to charities and institutions that I know. Some giving is leveraged through the foundation, but it is aimed at causes that I care about. So I'll pause there and turn it back to you, Laura.
Thank you, Dale. I'm so glad you brought up some of those examples. And I love your phrase edge, because it does capture, what we're doing. So I'd like to just share another story about the kind of high impact nonprofits just doing great work in Westchester, made possible by generous donors. We have a fund for health that was established many years ago to support access to healthcare. And this is the language in the fund: with preference for innovative programs with countywide impact. Our board and the staff have prioritized behavioral and mental health care. This is a huge issue, even more needed now. And one grantee that we've been working with, and I want to shout out Robin and Tara, our program officers who are in the audience. This has been a group effort to work with the Harris Project, which is a young organization emerging that's focused on co-occurring disorders in young people. What is that? That is young people dealing with both substance abuse and mental health issues. The Harris Project has developed a two-pronged strategy: expand access to training on a new clinical approach to treating co-occurring disorders, and then track those results, collect the outcomes to help make policy change on how behavioral and mental health care is delivered. With our seed funding, the organization has built a community of practice for clinicians throughout Westchester. 5 mental health organizations, a consortium of 14 colleges and universities, local hospitals, 4 school districts, and the support of the County Department of Community Mental Health are all brought into the work of the Harris Project. And it's impressive. The main point that I want the audience to know, because give me a call, I'll tell you all about it offline, is just what we were aiming to do is honor the intent of the Health Fund to fund innovative programs with countywide impact. We've increased access to healthcare in ways that we know will save lives. The other thing is we wanted to support an emerging organization, a visionary who just had the tenacity to say, we've got to do better. We've got to save lives by looking at how we treat young people who are dealing with both these issues. So I'm just very proud of the work of the Harris Project, but also very proud of the work of the foundation in getting this to be at a point where it could be funded and seeing the amazing results that have come. And of course, there are plenty of issues we're still working on. One of the challenges, as many of you know, is that in Westchester, much of poverty is not easy to see, and too many people here need food. They're hungry, they need jobs, they need affordable housing, they need equitable health care. They also need to have a good quality of life through vibrant arts and culture, a clean and healthy environment, opportunities to thrive. Yes, we look at all of this when we think about the work of the Westchester Community Foundation. And we also know that access to all of these things is uneven. We've known it anecdotally because we've seen it, but we also wanted a more data-driven way to get at these issues, because we constantly hear, oh, Westchester is so wealthy. Westchester doesn't have any needs. We wanted the data to show, look, when you disaggregate the data and you get to the hyperlocal level, you see the issues we're working with. So that's why we've invested in the creation of the Westchester Index, which is an online database that puts all these needs out in the open in a way that is free. It's a gift to the community. It allows government, foundations, nonprofits, donors to fully understand the problems clearly and accurately. It is centered on disparities along race and ethnic lines. And by that, I mean what the index does is provide useful information on barriers so that we can tackle tough issues. Every indicator has explanatory information. It is also the only single source for multiple indicators on the many conditions in which our residents are born, grow, are educated, live, work, and age. So you can search by city, town, municipal level. The data is designed in 6 categories with, as I said, context, and we'll be developing more stories for the site. I would like everybody to know that this index is ours. It's a place for dialogue. I'm going to thank first Dale and then Sarah, who as board chairs sort of nurtured this baby and helped us get it going. It launched just a few months ago. So I'm very, very proud of that. And open that up for any further discussion, or Amy, if there are any questions you have, happy to give more wonderful examples of our work.
The Westchester Index is amazing, and I think sets a really high bar for how we can sort of better understand the community and understand its needs. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit, you talked a little bit about affordable housing, mental health needs. Tell us a little bit about a couple of the nonprofits that you're funding that you think are just doing. And this is hard. This is like, we don't want you to choose favorites. Everybody, every grantee you have, I know, is special and noteworthy. But can you give us a couple of examples of a couple that you just feel like are conquering these kinds of problems in really innovative ways?
Sure. I'll tell you a story about our workforce initiative because it's the most concrete way I'd like everybody to understand our commitment to lifting people out of poverty, and particularly intergenerational poverty. We began this initiative 5 years ago when we elevated the conversation around what does it mean to help people get jobs and develop career pathways. And we were very thoughtful and data-driven and deliberative in our approach. We were commissioning research, both quantitative and qualitative. We were holding convenings, and we were bringing employers into the conversation. Most important, we were listening to young people because we really decided we wanted to lean in on out of school, out of work young people. And we knew, although we didn't have the index, we knew that young people in Mount Vernon, Yonkers, and New Rochelle were communities where we really wanted to lean in. So we went and we listened to them. We wanted to understand their hopes, their dreams, their aspirations. And what we heard was deeply troubling. We heard a lack of hope. We heard a lack of aspiration. We heard maybe I'll get a job at a fast food place. And we said, no, this is not good enough. So we set out to make serious impact in future opportunities of young people in those 3 communities. So today our workforce initiative is helping folks access career opportunities. The Westchester Community College is partnering with employers, Montefiore, the Wartburg and Burke, creating pathways to employment. WestHab and the Guidance Center are partnering with local construction companies. So I know, Amy, I didn't pick just one, but I wanted to tell the story of our approach to build, to create and design a portfolio with a clear intention to have outcomes and real impact in lives of young people. And that's just one example. You're right, that is just one example, but there are plenty more to share over time.
So I can never get away with not wanting to talk about one of the topics that I'm most passionate about, which is the environment. And I know I've been out with you seeing some of the open space projects that the Westchester Community Foundation has funded. Can you talk a little bit about the stuff you're thinking about as open space, both for public health, as well as climate resilience?
Absolutely. Top of mind, very important. We've had a robust environment portfolio. I believe it is the largest, focused only on Westchester. We've worked over the years on the Hudson River and the Long Island Sound, on biodiversity issues, yes, open space preservation. What you saw in New Rochelle, to folks, what Amy is referring to is the importance of land conservation in an urban area that's undergoing quite a lot of downtown development. So, balancing development with preservation of open space. We've been investing in sustainability initiatives. We have invested in a great organization that is helping public school teachers incorporate climate issues into their curriculum so that young people are learning, being educated about this issue that they are going to be faced with. So it's a broad range, and I would echo what you're saying, that, having been through Floyd and Irene and Sandy, climate resilience is a top priority for the community foundation, whether it's, water level rise, whether it's municipalities being prepared for the next big event. It is something we think about quite a bit and will continue to lean in on.
Awesome. Well, I love to hear that. That's the best thing. But all of the work you do is so amazing. And I think everyone can see why you and your team are such an incredible resource in Westchester. And you guys have such a deep passion and understanding of the county. And even the fact that you're sharing that information through the index is just a tremendous resource. So we're going to now open it up for comments in a second. But I just wanted to say one more thing, which is that I was a fan of the New York Community Trust long before I joined the team. I was a grantee, I was a fellow grant maker, I was a fellow funder. The Westchester Community Foundation and the New York Community Trust, like our peer community foundations across the country, are places that drive change, they drive equity, and they drive democracy. And you don't have to be a billionaire or a millionaire to make an impact in your community. You simply need to have passion and purpose, and we help put that passion and purpose to work in Westchester. We welcome people who are able to give at all levels to join our community of donors and share in the sheer joy of giving. Whether that's a $100 gift to our Community Needs Fund or a legacy fund worth millions, it is the diversity of our broad community of donors, board members, and nonprofit partners that gives us strength. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Julia, and I want some really hard questions coming our way. Take it away.
Thank you, Amy. So as Amy said, we invite your questions from the audience at this time. I do see we have a few in the chat already that we'll be sure to get to. So you can type in your questions into the chat, or you can also direct message me if that's more comfortable, and I'll read the questions out loud and it'll all be anonymous. You can also raise your hand. And we'll call on you to unmute yourself, and you can ask the question directly that way. Please raise your hand by clicking the reactions button at the bottom of your screen. It's the smiley face button there, and clicking the hand raise icon. And so I know that we're welcoming a lot of people from the broader trust community today. So we'll try to get to as many folks as possible. And let's start with Karen, the first hand raise.
I'm guessing it's me. Hi, I'm Karen Tumulty from Groundwork Hudson Valley in Yonkers. Big fans of Westchester Community Foundation. There have been a long-term partner and have provided for some great work to be done. My question is really just a technical question of who do we speak to about providing some data for the Westchester Index, because we've mapped the whole city of Yonkers on excessive heat.
Right.
And that's very useful data because it does cross over into health, into community stability, quality of life, all those things. So we would be more than happy to share that. And I just need to know how.
Thanks for that question. And I put the URL westchesterindex.org in the chat so folks know how to access it. So the index was designed to have 65 indicators so that users could add their data to the index for their own purposes. and some of you know, we had an earlier version that had 200 indicators, and we learned the hard way that it became unwieldy. So the goal was to sort of create 65 indicators, and then Groundwork can use it to tell the amazing story that you're doing, and we're familiar with that, and the whole heat island work and how that's evolving. Our next iteration for the index is to provide data stories that will highlight some of the great work that is going on by all the nonprofits in the county, that sort of bring to life the stories of the needs and what folks are doing. And then they can link to something on perhaps on your website for people who get into the specifics on that particular data set.
Great. So I'll just put ours under the heat stuff under air quality.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and I just,
And thank you to Tara Seeley. Got to give Tara her propers. Tara Seeley has been not just a good partner fiscally, but a pleasure to work with.
but Karen, I think you're so right. And this is one of the things that I find so interesting is about the intersection of like environment and public health and these issues that a community foundation, I think, is uniquely well poised to address things like urban heat island. And because we deal with the complexity of all the issues of the county, it's place-based, it's place-focused. And so I'm so glad you raised that issue.
Agreed. I mean, it really crosses everything. So it's awesome. So anyway, thank you very much. This has really been fun to watch. Bye.
Thanks, Karen. And I see we have a few other hand raises, but just to be fair, we'll go back and forth between the chat and hand raises. So next question is, how does a potential nonprofit apply for grants or find out about grant opportunities?
Great question. So there's a section on our website, wcf-ny.org, that says for nonprofits. And Robin and Tara have worked very hard to make the process clear about how to apply. Where we also ask folks to look at our funding categories and understand what we are seeking to support, what we can support. So as you heard earlier, we hold certain types of funds, we do develop strategies. There's a lot we wish we could do. So what we ask nonprofits to do is take a look at what our strategies are and what our areas of focus are. And then if you think it's a fit, follow the process. And there's a very well-defined letter of intent process. And then at some point, you'll be in touch with one of the program officers. I just want folks to know that we don't like declining applications. So what we try to do is provide some guidance and support to applicants about how they can strengthen their application in the future or other areas where they might be able to seek funding. And that's just the right thing to do. I mean, we're invested in the strength of the nonprofit sector. So where we can't be a direct funding source, we're working quite closely, and Robin and Tara do a great bit of this to help nonprofits understand how to get to the capacity where they can successfully apply for funding, either from us or from other funders.
Thanks, Laura. And Deborah Blatt, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, hi. Here, I'll go on camera too. So I come at it from a little bit of a frustration point of view, and I would like to get clarified. I've called and tried to get information before. Our mission is addressing clothing insecurity and meeting the basic material needs of infants, children, and teens in Westchester. And I was guided that this fell in the same pool for grant applications with food pantries, and that no matter what, when faced with an application for a food pantry, that the clothing insecurity would lose every time. So I look at it as, how does one even look at it optimistically that we would, we have an issue that is under addressed in the county, a growing need that we're addressing. And I don't feel like we even can apply, because no matter what we do, we've sort of been predetermined to lose this, if that makes sense. Like, I basically was told I would lose every time if I had to face a grant application from a food pantry. So I don't want to take food away, but at the same time, if a kid doesn't have socks and underwear and clothing, they're not going to go to school. So that's really my question, is like, have things changed? How do we even educate you guys to say, look, there are other issues related in this field?
Yeah, and we're well versed in the frustration of nonprofits who haven't been able to successfully receive a grant. It's tough, you know, you have to make difficult choices. One thing that we try to do with nonprofits such as yours is where there are donors who ask for guidance, we can direct them. That's why we make it our business to know about the work of your organization and others and suggest those to donors. I mean, it's only if donors are interested. And also encourage nonprofits to build up their own capacity to do more fundraising themselves. And so not be as reliant on foundations, which, you know, to diversify their funding streams. And there are lots of ways that we've done that. We're a big supporter of nonprofit Westchester, which provides a lot of capacity building. And we are the only foundation in Westchester that does technical assistance and capacity building grants to support nonprofits. And we do that as a way to kind of offset where we can't do direct program support. Our work with the COAD, which I know you're an active participant in, which is Communities Organized After a Disaster, is another approach where we are trying to strengthen the network within the communities organized after a disaster so that everybody can work together more fluidly around issues such as clothing insecurity and shoe insecurity and other sorts of basic needs.
So basically what the answer in short is that the foundation itself, its position on this field is fixed, but there's support elsewhere because we have built capacity, we have done all those things, but essentially the answer remains that no matter that really the foundation is not going to be the right place to get a grant from the foundation itself for clothing insecurity.
At this time, the foundation's priority with respect to basic needs is food insecurity.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Deborah. So can we share a bit more about how, you know, we help organizations get on the foundation's radar for donor advised fund giving, individual donor giving, and legacy giving?
Sure. So as I described earlier, we do work with a number of wonderful donors who like to make aligned grants and with whom we're in communication. So as I said yesterday, I did a site visit. And what I was listening for, it's an organization we've worked with in the past, but we're not currently in a funding relationship with them. And I explained, I'm listening on a lot of levels. I'm listening not only from what we could do, but I have some donors in mind. I also have some fellow foundations in mind where I'm listening with something that they might want to know about. So that's the kind of work that Robin and Tara and I do quite frequently, which is to learn a lot about the nonprofits as much as we can to keep abreast of what they're doing. That's why a decline, while painful, can also be an opportunity for us to do a little bit of matchmaking. I have to say that we don't shop projects to donors. It is where donors have asked us for guidance and, you know, what are you seeing? We saw a great uptick in this during the pandemic. You know, I don't want to say it was great, but it was heartening that we had a lot of donors reach out to us, near community trust donors who live in Westchester and say, okay, where can we give? You know, we know about your COVID-19 response fund, where else can we give? And we could say, you know, this organization is really on the front lines and can benefit from more support. We vetted them, they're solid. So that's it continues, you know, it was an uptick during disasters, but what's been interesting is as we are still struggling to recover from the pandemic, we're still having donors lean in as, you know, silent partners in this work because they care about the community.
You know, and I think all of these questions sort of come back to the goal that we have, which is just to grow the support, right? It's a finite pot of funds, but we have so many generous people in Westchester, and we really need to reach them and have them learn more about the needs that exceed what our funds currently can cover. So it just underpins the importance of that kind of networking that Sarah talked about, is kind of organizing ourselves and our community to put the resources forward that can really support the myriad nonprofits that are doing great work in the county.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Laura. Tracy, I see you've had your hand up. We welcome you to unmute yourself.
Hi, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Tracy Stora, and I'm the incoming project program director of the Federated Conservationists of Westchester County. So today is actually my first day, so bear with me. I have a little bit to talk about our existing student network and the funding that we're looking for that. As we all know, investing in our students is investing in our future and our future environmental leaders. The goal of our student network is to uplift student voices in the field of environmental advocacy, as well as provide adequate support systems for students to grow in the field of environmental activism. So some of the funding that we're looking for would provide advocacy training, assistance and funding for internships by matching students with organizations and government offices on issues relating to the environment and climate change. Staffing and support in the effort to work with the New York State Education Department to develop a required climate change educational awareness program for grades K through 12. To give you an example of some of the, or one of the student projects that they're working on, they're presently coordinating a spring 2023 Food Systems Summit, which focuses on how the present food systems impacts our climate extractive system. So I very much am looking forward to your guidance and support as I move on this new role. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you, Tracy. And I'm pleased that everybody else on the call can learn about the work that Tracy and Deborah are doing, because that's also a role of a community foundation beyond being a funder, is being a convener and a connector. Wonderful things can happen when organizations collaborate with one another or get inspired by one another. So thanks for sharing your work.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, Laura. I am mindful of time, and I'm also mindful that we have a lot of questions in the chat. So we may go over just a little bit so that we can try to get to a few more questions before we end. So we'll borrow a few more minutes of your time. I see someone asked where we can access the Westchester Index information. The URL for that should be in the chat, westchesterindex.org. Do we fund interfaith work?
I think that would involve a conversation with a program officer as to what they mean by that. You know, we don't fund religious activities, but where work is going on through and by and within a place of worship, we take a look at that. But you know, we do have, and it's all on the website, what we can and cannot fund. So that would be a good conversation offline with one of our program officers who would really want to unpack what are you looking to accomplish.
Thanks, Laura. So as we know, homelessness prevention and workforce development programming go hand in hand and are very interlinked. So what are kind of the prospects or opportunities for the Westchester Community Foundation and offering additional RFP opportunities for those kinds of endeavors next year?
So on homelessness prevention, we're doing quite a lot of work with social service agencies, workforce as well. I would say take a look at the website. We're constantly updating it with who we're currently working with. And then if you think you have, I'm not sure who's asking the question, you know, if folks are taking an updated approach to this kind of work, we'd love to hear about it.
Great, thank you. Can we share a bit about our initiatives that are working on diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Sure. I'm wondering, Dale, I'm putting you on the spot. Do you?
I would answer,
Yeah.
I would answer it
Great.
as well. And maybe you can chime in, Dale, if you feel like I missed something. But I think from a board perspective, first of all, we have a subcommittee that is specifically dedicated to DEI initiatives and looking specifically at the Westchester Index with that lens. And also the board, I don't know if anyone is familiar with our board composition, but Laura has done a tremendous job of really diversifying the board. It really adequately represents the various stakeholders of the Westchester County community, which is a very diverse community.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is, again, from a board perspective, as Sarah said, it's been top of mind. And a couple of years ago, we had a consultant come in, we had a workshop over a couple of days. And the idea was to level set the language and the approach for the center and for the staff. And that was a useful exercise. There's no question when people think about DEI, there's a broad spectrum, but our focus was have a common language and think about how philanthropy, which is our toolbox, can work to make things better. And we moved the needle, but yeah.
And on the program side, we have really worked hard to be intentional about how we are supporting DEI values and goals in our work. So just last month, the Rockwood Leadership Institute had a 2-day training for emerging leaders. I think 90% of them were BIPOC. And we'll be providing more resources, if Amy approves our last docket, for support for emerging nonprofits led by BIPOC leaders. Those are program goals and support that have come out of the work of this DEI committee and through collaboration with the program team, looking at our technical assistance portfolio, as well as, and that's just to start. I think the main thing I would like folks to know is it's not like a check the box. It is how we want to be and live and own this commitment. So we are on our way, and I'm very proud of that.
Thanks, so yes, to Federated Conservationists of Westchester County, a shout out to the advantage of multi-year funding. I know that's something we believe in. And I know Laura definitely agrees. If you want to speak a little bit more to how we view multi-year funding here at the Trust.
Yes, we want to do more of that, particularly on our work that we know takes time and policy work. Emerging organizations, organizations that are looking to scale. Again, it's not a one size fits all. It's not like everybody can apply for a 2-year grant. It's a conversation where the program officers are really partnering with the nonprofit leaders as to their goals and objectives and keeping that realistic. Like, what can you do in a year? Maybe you're going to need a bit more time. Well, let's talk about that. When we do multi-year funding, we take the dollars out of this year's grants budget. What that means is there's fewer dollars for other grants, but it is an important commitment and a true partnership with nonprofits when we commit to that work.
Thank you, Laura. And final question. I think that's just about the time that we have. Any thoughts about the need for supporting the arts in Westchester?
Plenty of thoughts about the need for supporting the arts. We have just 2 permanent funds for the arts. One is for fellowships and the other is for Germanic culture. Those were bequests. So we have a gap. There is no permanent fund for the arts in this county. We have Arts Westchester, which raises dollars and puts dollars out and needs to do that. And we're very grateful for their work. The Community Foundation is raising money for a permanent fund for the Arts and Creative Expression Fund, which was launched a number of years ago to honor our former board chair, Teresa Kilman, who is on the call. We've recently received a very generous challenge grant from an anonymous donor of $500,000, 1-to-1 match. We're looking to raise $500,000 so that we can get to that threshold of a permanent fund from which, and we can keep going, but from which we can support a wide variety of access to the arts. We are strong believers in that. We see the intersection with art therapy and mental health, quality of life. There are so many ways arts and culture can be provided more support through the Westchester Community Foundation. We just need the resources to do it. So whoever asked that question, thank you very much.
Thanks, Laura. And I do actually see that there's one more hand raised, so we'll squeeze in one final question. Cheryl, I see your hand is raised if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sure. Thank you so very much. And I have a bit of a cold, so please excuse my voice. But I did want to lift up the issue of Black maternal and child health. I noted in the chat that this is not only a local and national issue, but certainly a global issue as well. We have found that Black women are dying during birth, in some instances, even more than developing countries. And certainly, Westchester County has not been totally immune to that as well. So that said, Sister to Sister International did some research in 2019 and updated it again last year related to health and specifically Black maternal health for women here, certainly in the Westchester County area. And as a result of the work that we've done there, we have created a Black maternal and child center of excellence, and we're partnering with various different community partners using a collective impact framework. Those community partners include everyone from birthing hospitals like St. John's Riverside Hospital, local community organizations, government, and so on. So that said, we are looking to expand upon the Center of Excellence to include pillars, including a data center. So certainly we look forward to working with you in that regard. But further to offer anti-bias training and to offer wraparound services and support specifically for Black women. We've got a pre-eclampsia campaign and so many other things going on. So that said, I just wanted to lift up this issue because it is so very important. New York City has made some great strides in terms of some of the initiatives that they put in place. And certainly we're working with county government, but we want to work with foundations as well. And we have had the pleasure of working with Westchester Community Foundation during some of our earlier years in the area of STEM and STEAM, but we want to lift up Black maternal health at this time and just look forward to the possibilities and any comments that you might have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you. And so that wraps up the time we have today for questions. I really appreciate all of your deep engagement with our amazing team here at the Westchester Community Foundation. And thank you for such a thoughtful discussion. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. If we were not able to get to your question, please feel free to visit our website or contact us directly at info@wcf-ny.org, and we'd be happy to connect you. And please do follow us on social media to stay up to date on what's happening at the Westchester Community Foundation. As a reminder, the event was recorded and excerpts will be shared if you have friends or colleagues who couldn't make it today. And again, just want to thank you all for joining us tonight, and we hope you have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.